Hello and welcome to another episode of the Balls It Up podcast, the podcast where we talk about the latest in the sports world and we also focus on some Balls It Up moments at the end.
Actually, got a lot this week, haven't we?
Yeah, we got some decent ones. We're going to start off with Speedway this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite an eventful couple of weeks since the last podcast. We'll start with the Extra League meetings. Rybnik and Lejno. This is big. Someone working in the pits during this meeting tested positive for COVID-19. Apparently, they put out a statement and they said it wasn't a rider, it wasn't a mechanic, and it wasn't a manager. So it limits it a lot of who it could be. So it must be like an official or like race director or something like that.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of people left.
No, so it meant that the riders had to go into quarantine until they tested negative, which meant a lot of stuff got pushed back, like the Rybnik and Chestertrova meeting got pushed back because obviously they can't risk meeting with other riders. The Lejno and Zelonigora meeting got pushed back. They were all retested on the 20th of July, and then when they had the negative result, they could go back into racing because also the European Championship got pushed back. So I think there was about 5 riders from this Rybnik-Lejno meeting who were in this European Championship, so it wasn't worth doing it without them, and it wouldn't be fair. So that got pushed back, but now it's looking like people are starting to get back into it. And speaking of the European Championship, the final round takes place in Torun on the 29th of July, which is tomorrow when we're recording the podcast.
I can't believe it's already almost finished.
Yeah, it's because they did a shortened version. There's only 5 rounds. Normally it's in other countries, so they have a couple of weeks gap between each one, but it's been all in Poland and it's been one every week, apart from last week because one got pushed back. They did 2 in the same week, which was like, whoa, okay. And what was really weird is they did round 4 before they did round 3.
Oh, okay.
It makes sense.
But Lambert's leading it, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's currently got 53 points, with Leon Madsen in second with 51. So it is really close, especially because Madsen won 3 rounds out of 5, but Lambert is just leading the championship. And if Lambert wins, he has got a place in the Grand Prix next season, which is something that I think he's been wanting for a long time, and it's something he deserves because this year his form has been brilliant. We also have to talk about Nicky Pedersen in the European Championship. I mean, in the last round of the European Championship, Nicky was seen on his Instagram talking to the race director, and apparently he was telling him that he wasn't happy with the track conditions, and he said that sooner or later someone's going to crash because apparently the conditions were that bad. And guess what happened?
He ended up crashing.
Yeah, heat 7, Pedersen crashed, and he wasn't in the rest of the meeting, but apparently he's got a badly bruised neck and shoulder, and it's all taped up, so he won't be happy, and he was complaining about it on his Instagram. I was like, oh God. Unfortunately, we have got a couple of other injuries as well. League 1 in Poland has started up, and Hans Hansen got an injury already. It just about sums up his last season, to be honest, because last season he was so unlucky with injuries and stuff going on, and he said he was ready to put the season to a close and start the next one fresh, and he's already got injured. I think it was his first meeting and he got injured, but luckily he continued with the rest of the meeting and he got decent points. He went back to Denmark, got it checked out, had some x-rays, and he's just badly bruised, so hopefully he can get back on form.
Seems like that Peterborough curse follows you even when you're not actually riding for him.
Apparently that is generally a thing. Now, after 2 months of recovery from hip surgery, Martin Smolinski is coming back. He crashed before the season even started and got a hip injury. Just about sums up Speedway, really, doesn't it?
It's just unlucky. You wait all this time to get the season back and then you end up crashing before it actually starts and then you can't race.
But he's coming back. He said he's still not race fit yet, but he's going to have some practice before he gets back, and hopefully he'll soon be on that. Now we have to talk about Brady Kurtz. He has had a really tough start for Lejno. He just hasn't been getting the points that he should be getting. So they've actually put him on loan to the League 1 team. You're going to have to excuse the pronunciation. I want to say Lodz, but I'm not 100% sure about that, so sorry. But they've put him on loan for a season. I think this is the thing that he really needs, to be honest, because he wasn't ready for the Extra League, and it showed, and I feel like if he'd have kept riding in that bad form, it would have just knocked his confidence. So hopefully he can build his confidence and get ready to come up into the Extra League a following year. Now we've got the Grand Prix Challenge, which was due to take place in Slovakia, but due to COVID restrictions, it has been moved to Croatia and is now due to take place on the 22nd of August. Unfortunately, with the coronavirus, like, a lot of the Speedway has been put on hold apart from the top leagues in Sweden, which is coming back, and Poland, but the second division in Sweden has now been cancelled, but Antonio Lindback and Jason Doyle are both planning on returning to Sweden to race this year in the top league, so that is good news for Swedish fans. Also, the Swedish Championship has been done and Jakob Torsell has won it for the second time in a row. So that's good for him. I know that a few riders didn't take place in it, I think just because of the restrictions and stuff like that. I don't think Freddie Lindgren did and stuff like that, so, but twice in a row, so that's good for him.
I think Lindgren needs to take part in it, does he? Because he's already in the Grand Prix and...
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with Ty Wolfenden. He doesn't bother taking part in the English ones because he won it every year. It's nice for other riders
to get a chance.
Yeah, especially because it's quite a big deal to be the best rider in your country. So unfortunately, I'm not surprised. Due to the government's announcements about not being able to have any fans in sports stadiums until October, the Championship and Premiership in the UK will not be taking place until 2021. A few people were surprised about this, but honestly I couldn't see it happening. I'm disappointed, but I think it's the best thing to do right off the season. And hopefully in October, because obviously that's when the season normally finishes, we can hopefully get some individual meetings or something. Some kind of racing across there would be great. But
I don't think it was ever going to work without fans, because it's not like football and all these bigger sports where they have the money where they can actually take part without fans. But with Speedway, they need the fans there, and if they don't have the fans, it's not worth putting it on. The teams are going to be spending so much money and not getting any of it back.
I feel like this is the best thing just to write it off, because when it gets to October, the weather gets bad, and especially in the UK, like, you get more and more rain-offs, and it's not like you can race a Speedway track when it's chucking it down with rain, because it's just dangerous.
They might even struggle next season, depending on how many fans are actually allowed in, because if the government says, oh, you're only allowed like 25% of the venue for a Speedway ground, 25% isn't all that much. No,
definitely not. I mean, hopefully by then we'll be allowed to do something, because we have got a long break from when the season we normally stop in October. It normally starts about March time, so hopefully by then things will be getting turned around, but who knows, fingers crossed.
Now we're going to move on to F1. We have some bad news, but kind of expected news to start off with the US, Mexican and Brazilian races will not be going ahead in 2020. Obviously, them countries over there have got real big problems with COVID.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's going to stick to Europe. I think F1 has known that since the season started, and it was just expected. So it's unfortunate that we're going to lose them great races, but hopefully we'll get some more in Europe to fill their shoes. We got some interesting news to start off with, as Renault has launched a protest about the legality of Racing Point's car after the Styrian Grand Prix. Now, if you watch F1, you've heard about it, that Racing Point have basically gone and, I don't want to say copied the 2019 Mercedes, but they based their car heavily off of it and used pictures when they were building their car to basically make it the pink Mercedes. Yeah. And I mean, it's definitely worked out, because they are arguably the second best team, with Ferrari struggling. Yeah. But Renault have protested this, saying that something to do with their brake ducts, the front and rear brake ducts, they are saying are exactly the same as last year's Mercedes. And now the rules state that you can't just take a part from another car, you have to develop it yourself. But they're saying, like Renault are saying, that they've just taken it straight from the Mercedes. So we're gonna hear soon what's to come of that, but...
How do they know about that?
Well, they've shown pictures of it, and if you look at the pictures directly together, they look exactly the same, or very, very similar. Yeah,
and can't spot the difference.
Renault have protested it, and we'll see what's to come of that shortly. Since the last podcast, we've had the Hungarian Grand Prix, and in qualifying, Mercedes were in a class of their own, as we've come to expect from the start of this season. They were a second faster than the rest of the pack, even with slower tyres.
Yeah.
Ferrari was still way off the pace. Good qualifying for Racing Point once again. All the Ferrari-powered cars seem to be struggling.
Oh, it's not like Ferrari at all.
Ferrari have become a midfield team at this point. They're struggling to get into Q3.
They do make it look difficult.
And we've got Alfa Romeo struggling at the back. They've been struggling for the last couple of years, but they're not getting any help either. And a big thing for Williams from the Hungarian qualifying was they got both cars in Q2. And Russell was actually ahead of Albon into Q2, which is a massive step forward for Williams considering where they were last year. I mean, because there was points last year where they were over a second behind the other teams at the back. And now they're actually able to get their cars into Q2. They haven't been able to do it in the race, unfortunately, because they're the only team without any points. But there's definite progress there, which is very good.
Oh, yeah.
As I said, Mercedes have been completely dominant. They've won all 3 races so far, but despite that, we've still had some really good racing. We had a wet track at the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and Verstappen actually crashed on his way round to the starting boxes.
Oh, no.
Not even the formation lap.
No.
But just taking their car round to the starting box, he slipped off the track and crashed, and the team had to fix his car before the formation lap.
Oh.
They managed to do it just, which was great from Red Bull's point of view and great work by their mechanics. But he's very lucky that he was even in this race. It was a crazy start. Bottas actually jumped the start, but he impeded himself. He didn't get any penalties or anything because they judged that he was still in the starting box, but he dropped back about 4 places at the start, and it was awful. Haas actually pitted after the formation lap for dry tyres.
Really?
Which was crazy because they were on full wet. Everyone else was on intermediate tyres.
Yeah.
Because they were probably just going around testing the track, but then they decided to come in before the formation lap, and they pitted for dry tyres, which was actually a really good decision on their point, because they ended up getting really high into points-paying positions, and they did end up getting 10-second penalties for it after the race, because it was like against the rules that they actually did that. But Haas got their first points of the season because of this. Magnussen came 10th after the 10-second penalty and got Haas's first point. Hamilton pulled away very early. He was way gone. It wasn't very easy to overtake on this track because of the wet spots.
Yeah.
Even after they had gone round a few laps and everyone was back on dry tyres after not too long. But there was wet spots off the racing line, as you can expect, and you try and overtake off the racing line, you wouldn't get anywhere. So it was very difficult to overtake. Leclerc was not liking the soft tyres. I don't think the soft tyres really worked on the cool track, but Leclerc was on the soft tyres and he was defending for his life. Like, it's not what you come to see from a Ferrari car, but he was struggling against Norris, who was trying to get past him but just couldn't. He was defending really well, to be fair to him, but it's just the Ferrari's really struggling.
It's not like them at all.
The teams were literally going round for like 20 odd laps saying, oh, the rain's going to come in 5 minutes, the rain's going to come in 10 minutes, oh, we're waiting 10 laps. The rain never came.
That's typical.
Teams ended up giving up on it at the end. Red Bull didn't seem to have the pace to fight Mercedes. Verstappen did really well to get to where he was, but they just couldn't keep up. It just doesn't seem like they have their car set up quite right.
Yeah.
Seems like if they actually do get their setups right for their drivers, they could have some decent pace and maybe push the Mercedes, but they just haven't got it quite yet. That Mercedes engine is just completely overpowering. We had a little bit of an issue though towards the end of it where Mercedes didn't really know what they were doing with Hamilton's last pit stop, and we're going to mention this a little bit later in the balls are up section, but basically they came out with softs. Hamilton wanted to come in, but then they ended up going back in, and then like a few laps later they came back out and it was just a mess. Hamilton's engineer even said he didn't know what was going on the radio.
I mean, that's great.
McLaren in this race didn't quite have their last lap magic. They were quite poor in this race. They struggled. They've been struggling with their race pace for the first 3, but Norris has just somehow managed to gain like 6 or 7 places on the last lap.
Somehow.
But they didn't quite have that in them. Racing Point were good again, and once again Magnussen got Haas's first point. We've got some more unfortunate news for Ferrari, as their chairman has come out and said that they cannot expect to be competitive until 2022, which is absolutely crazy to me.
I mean, that's a long time away.
Yeah. We've got Hamilton leading the Drivers' Championship ahead of Bottas by 5 points. Big question this year is, will he be able to get his record-tying 7th championship, or can Bottas actually be consistent enough this year to challenge Hamilton? Because that's been Bottas's problem the whole time. You know, he has his good races, but he's just not been consistent enough.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if Hamilton's not going to win his 7th championship, it's only going to be Bottas that's going to stop him, because no one is anywhere near Mercedes this year. They are completely ahead. Ferrari are 94 points behind Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship after just 3 races. We do have a good battle developing between McLaren and Racing Point, who are on 41 and 40 points respectively, and are doing really well, all things considering.
Yeah, it's nice to see those teams that don't normally dominate doing well.
I mean, Racing Point and McLaren have come on a lot since last year, and they're really pushing for them top points paying positions.
If, you know, like Ferrari said that they're not going to be ready to challenge until 2022, do you think Leclerc will stick around with Ferrari?
Oh yeah, I think so. I don't know where else he'd go.
True.
But yeah, I think he'll just stick out. I mean, he's good enough to get the car higher than it probably is.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's just a shame, because after last year there was so much hope for Leclerc. Like, oh my God, he's going to be so good, but this year he just doesn't have the car for it. It's nothing to do with him driving. He's driving great in the car he's got. The defensive work he was doing in Hungary just showed that he's a great driver, but you need a good car. I
do feel kind of bad for him, because he does look like a really promising driver, but
like, we all expected it to be Hamilton up there again, but with Verstappen and Leclerc challenging him, and Red Bull just haven't seemed to have the pace, and Ferrari are just way off. So it's been very disappointing in that stance. I'm going to move on to the NFL now. We've got some big news coming from Washington. Obviously, they have picked a new name for their franchise after ditching the Redskins branding.
Yeah, and it is now Washington Football Team.
Yeah, this is only a temporary name.
Good.
For the upcoming season, because they said they needed more time to think of what they're going to call their team. And I can understand that. It's completely understandable. It's a huge decision.
Oh yeah, I mean this is everything. Like, this is what your whole team is based on.
Yeah, so thankfully it is only a temporary name, because Washington Football Team is very generic, not very exciting.
It's not really too intimidating.
But I can deal with it for this year, as long as they come up with a great name for the future of their franchise.
It'll be worth the wait.
Yeah. We've also got a big trade coming from the New York Jets and Seattle Seahawks. Safety Jamal Adams and a 4th-round pick has been traded to Seattle in exchange for their safety, Bradley McDougall, a 1st-round pick in 2021, a 3rd-round pick in 2021, and a 1st-round pick in 2022. Jamal Adams is a really good young safety. Bradley McDougall is a decent safety in his own right. For the Jets to pick up 2 first-round picks and a 3rd-round pick, I think that's probably one of the best deals you could hope for.
That is a really nice deal.
For one of the best young safeties in football, for that to get that back and a good safety to take over his position, that's a great trade for both teams, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that's a really nice deal, actually.
Yeah, nothing to complain about there. I'm sure the Jets would have obviously liked to keep Jamal Adams, but I have no problem with trading that, because you want to get something good back for a good player. You don't just want to trade a good player for absolutely nothing. To get that back is really good.
Yeah, I fully agree.
MLB has now started.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah, opening day was a couple of days ago. It's obviously a shortened season, only 60 games, which means every game means so much more than it would in the 162 game seasons like usual.
Oh yeah, you can't waste any time.
And performances from players also mean a hell of a lot more, because if players get off to a slow start
Oh yeah, that's
and they
true.
don't start firing quickly, that could really slow down a team and cost them in a shortened season. We've had some good play from the Cubs in their opener. Kyle Hendricks had a complete game shutout, only giving up 3 hits. And Albert Almora Jr., probably with the best defensive play so far, with a great leaping catch into the bushes at Wrigley Field. There's not really much to talk about in terms of stats, as it's still very early in the season, only 4 games in.
Yeah.
Even in a shortened season, it could change a hell of a lot in the 56, 55 plus games that we've got coming up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There are no undefeated teams left after the first 3 to 4 games. The defending champs, Washington Nationals, have started 1-3, which is a little concerning. I expect them to turn it around. They've still got time.
Yeah.
Steven Strasburg, the World Series MVP, is out with an injury. He was scratched off the lineup card against the Yankees. So they've still got that to look forward to. Hopefully he comes back. Another team that's struggling are the Red Sox. And they have more rotation problems. Obviously, Sale's not playing. Rodriguez has a heart condition, unfortunately, which the doctors have actually said has come from contracting COVID-19. A heart condition called myocarditis. The Red Sox definitely need him. He was their best pitcher last year, and with Sale out, they need someone because they're really struggling. I mean, their batters are not doing bad at all. They are 2nd in batting average early and 5th in runs scored.
Yeah.
But they are 1-3 with a 5.50 ERA for their pitchers, which is not good. And they also lost their opening series to division rivals Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's looking like another disappointing season for the 2018 World Champs, unless they can figure things out. But their pitching just hasn't been good enough.
No.
And pitching's a really big thing. You can get as many runs as you want, but if your pitchers are giving up more than you're scoring, it doesn't matter what you do. We've had some unfortunate news as some games have been postponed. The Marlins-Orioles series and the Yankees-Phillies series, they've been stopped for additional COVID-19 testing. And we've also got some injuries to talk about. First one is Andrelton Simmons for the Los Angeles Angels. He got an ankle injury trying to beat out the ball to first base. He caught the back of the bag and rolled his ankle over, so we're waiting for further tests to see how long he's going to be out for. We've got Clayton Kershaw for the Dodgers. He was able to throw a 15-pitch bullpen session on Sunday, 3 days after he was scratched from his opening day start. He's got back stiffness. Justin Verlander for the Astros has been shut down with a right forearm strain. He's been placed on the 10-day injured list and will be re-evaluated in a couple of weeks, which is a big injury. One of the best pitchers in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Corey Kluber for the Rangers. He exited his debut on Sunday in the first inning due to tightness in his right shoulder. MRI revealed he has a grade 2 tear in his right teres major muscle. He'll be shut down from throwing for at least 4 weeks. More injury news for the Angels as Anthony Rendon recently signed from the world champion Washington Nationals. He could return from his oblique soreness as soon as Tuesday's home opener against the Mariners. He's yet to make his Angels debut because of the injury. We also have some injury news for the White Sox as Eloy Jimenez and Reynaldo Lopez are out. They both went out in Sunday's game against the Twins. Lopez departed because of a right shoulder soreness, and he's placed on the 10-day DL. and Jimenez appeared to run into one of the posts on the outfield fence, fell to the ground, and he stayed there initially but departed during the second inning. Eric Hosmer for the Padres. For the second time in 3 games, Hosmer was scratched shortly before the first pitch for what the team has called a non-COVID related illness.
What is that then?
So I'm not really sure what's going on with that one. And we've also got some injury news for the Twins as Byron Buxton and Rich Hill are out. The target date for Buxton's return is next Tuesday's home opener against the Cardinals. He has a mid-right foot sprain.
There are a lot of injuries.
Yeah, there's quite a few going on. They're not exactly little injuries.
No,
like there's some big players that
Yeah.
are out for their teams, and in a shortened season, it's not good to lose your best players.
God, no, definitely not.
Another sport that is just about to start up is the NBA. The warm-up games are coming to an end, with the season restart coming on the 30th of July. It'll be great to have the NBA back, especially now that football has finished until September. Some notable things to talk about for the restart is that in the Eastern Conference, the Wizards need to make a fast start if they're going to make the playoffs, as they are 6 games behind the 8th seed. They have to be within 4 games of the 8th seed to trigger the best of 2 play-in tournament that was discussed in the restart, and that basically means they'll have a 2-game series to decide who gets the last playoff spot.
Oh, okay.
But they are currently 6 games behind, and I believe they're only playing 8 games. So they need to get off to a really fast start.
That is going to be close.
The good thing for them is there's 2 teams that they can catch. There's the Magic and the Nets, who both have 30 wins. So they're going to have to make a fast start and hope them 2 teams have a slow start.
Yeah.
It's all to play for in the West, as 8th through 13th are separated by only 6 games, but there's only really 1 spot to fight for, as the Mavericks are all but safe in the 7th seed, and they're just a little bit too far ahead. It will be a battle for the 9th seed and to get within 4 games of the Grizzlies, unless Memphis have a poor start. Then obviously one of the teams below them will want to get above them. Currently Portland are only 3 games behind Memphis, and all the pressure's on Memphis. But yeah, everyone's going to be battling to get up to that 9th spot and get within 4 games of that 8th seed, because that play-in tournament's going to be huge.
Oh, yeah.
Every game, again, will be key, because there's not many games to play, and the teams fighting for the final playoff spots are going to have to treat every game like a Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
Oh, yeah. It's
absolutely
important.
All or nothing. If you win, it's big. If you lose, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
This will hopefully make for some must-see, exciting games to get us ready for the playoffs when they eventually come around.
I feel like this is a really good build-up.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to give us some good, exciting action to catch up on.
Definitely.
Going to move on to football now, which has finally come to an end. We had the final day of the season just on Sunday, the 26th of July. Last 2 Champions League spots were up for grabs, Europa League spots were up for grabs, and the relegation battle went right down to the wire. The teams that ended up getting relegated were Bournemouth and Watford. Aston Villa managed to stay up with a big 1-1 draw against West Ham.
I mean, that was huge.
Absolutely. Their win against Arsenal in their previous game was really the big one, as it gave them... It put it in their hands because of Watford losing 4-0 to Man City. It wiped out their goal difference advantage. And it was all in Aston Villa's hands. And Aston Villa actually went 1-0 up in that game, but ended up conceding a late goal, which made it very interesting, because if West Ham had got another goal, Bournemouth would have stayed up.
Because they were doing pretty decent.
Yeah, Bournemouth beat Everton 3-1 comfortably, and I think Bournemouth are going to be a big loss to the Premier League.
Yeah, I
They've been a
it's
good
shame.
Premier League team for the last few years, and they put in some really good performances, but they just left it too late. And they are going to be a big miss, and Eddie Howe's team, maybe they can get back up next year, but we'll just have to wait and see. Watford actually put up a really good fight against Arsenal. They ended up going 3-0 down in that game, but pulled it back to 3-2. It wouldn't have been enough anyway, but
No.
it was at least a good fight. It's going to sound harsh, but I think Watford deserve to go down just because of everything they've done with all their managers. They are on their 4th manager of the season. They fired Nigel Pearson. I don't know why. I don't know why they fired him. He got them out of the relegation zone.
Yeah.
They were bottom at Christmas.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
he got them out of the relegation zone. And I just don't understand why they fired him. But going through 4 managers in a season...
I feel like when it's like that, at that point you need to look at your players, not your managers. Because it's clearly
4
not
managers
the managers
couldn't get it done. I don't think it's the manager's fault. Brighton ended up beating Burnley in a pretty insignificant game.
Yeah.
They beat Burnley 2-1. Chelsea pulled out a big result against Wolves, beat them 2-0 quite comfortably, and managed to hold on to that Champions League spot. Again, not that it would have mattered because Leicester managed to bottle their Champions League spot completely. They lost 2-0 to Manchester United, and they just never really looked like scoring.
Nine.
And they are going to get a Europa League spot, which they absolutely deserve for their start to the season, but it's so disappointing for them not to get into the Champions League after how far ahead they were. They've got some big work to do in the summer. Luckily for them, James Maddison has signed a new contract.
That is very lucky because I know people weren't sure if he was going to stick around.
It looks like he's going to stay around, so that is really good for Leicester. They've really missed him. Spurs managed a draw against Crystal Palace to get the final Europa League spot after Wolves lost. Now, Wolves can still get a Europa League spot. It's all dependent on that FA Cup final. It's Arsenal versus Chelsea. If Arsenal win, they get a Europa League spot. If Chelsea win, because they're already qualified through the Champions League, Wolves will get that final Europa League spot. Man City destroyed Norwich 5-0. Again, an insignificant game.
I mean, I think that's kind of predictable, to be honest.
Yeah. Liverpool went 1-0 down against Newcastle but managed to beat them 3-1. Southampton beat Sheffield United 3-1, and that's the season over. And now we look to the Championship playoffs as we look to see who's going to be joining us in the Premier League next year. We already know about Leeds and West Brom, but who's going to be the final spot?
Swansea beat out of form Brentford with 1-0.
Yeah, that was their home leg, so Brentford need to get the job done at their place, but you never want to go into the playoffs with bad form because you'll get eaten alive and they just can't find anything. I mean, they lost to Barnsley on the final day, were relegation threatened.
Fulham were in the driving seat as they beat Cardiff 2-0 away from home.
Yeah, that was a dominating performance, and now they have to just finish the job at their place. And the winners of the 2 playoff semi-finals will meet each other at Wembley for that final place in the Premier League. Some other news in the Championship, unfortunately, Wigan have been relegated.
Yeah.
They only managed a draw on the final day of the season against Fulham, and they were, I think, 10 points above the relegation, and because of that 12-point deduction,
just a bit too much.
if they finished outside the relegation zone, it pulled them straight in.
I feel like that's such a shame.
It definitely is. They have appealed 12-point deduction. I'm not sure what's happening with that, but I think they're going to be in League One next year. I mean, I guess it's better in a way that they didn't get relegated on their own, because they would have had the 12-point deduction next year and they probably would have been in League Two, as we've seen with Bolton, who had the 12-point deduction at the start of this season and got relegated.
I feel like that just automatically puts you at a disadvantage at the start of the season.
It's just so unfortunate for them as they ended the season in really good form, tried to pull themselves up, but just couldn't get enough points in the end.
I do feel bad for them, to be honest.
Yeah, we had some more VAR controversy before the end of the season, as Palace were pretty much robbed against Manchester United, which, you know, this decides the Champions League spots at the end of the day.
Yep.
I just feel like VAR takes control too often.
I fully agree.
You know, it's meant to be an assistant. The referee on the field needs to check these decisions more. I know they do sometimes, and they actually, when they've done that and gone over to the screen and done it themselves, it's actually worked really well. And I think VAR has definitely gotten better but that's not really saying much with how poor it was before the restart.
No.
We just need to take it in the right direction now. We've had a season. There's absolutely no excuses to get this wrong for next season. The refs need to go over to them tellies and see it for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, they're the ones on the pitch. They're the ones that are seeing it happen in front of them. Like.
Yeah. They just need to get it right, and that's how they're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, elsewhere in sport, we've had the World Match Play come to an end in darts with Dimitri Vandenberg, who won his first major final against Gary Anderson 18-10 in a match that was way more comfortable than the young Belgian could ever have expected, with Anderson struggling the whole time. The win was fully deserved for Dimitri, who took out big finish after big finish, and he's definitely a player to look out for in the upcoming years. Also, we've got the Snooker World Championship, which will begin on the 31st of July and run till August the 16th. And now, we've got the Balls Up section.
Yeah, we have got a lot to pick from today. I mean, we've got a start in... There's actually a couple in Speedway for like the first time, but there has been some big ones. So, first of all, we have to talk about Dan Bewley and his BMX.
Crazy.
If you don't know, Dan Bewley had his BMX bike stolen, and he actually managed to get this back, which is a shock. If someone gets stolen, you never see it again, you move on. But he got it back, and he decided, oh, I'm going to test this out.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do. And when he was testing it out, he fell off. He's a Speedway rider who rides bikes for a living, and he fell off a BMX.
Yeah.
I mean, this just about sums up his season. He's not had the best of starts, which has been a shame because, you know, he's a young, promising rider, but...
I'm just wondering what his team would have thought when he phoned him up and said, look, I'm not going to be able to ride because I've broken my shoulder, I've fallen off my BMX. It's just absolutely insane. I bet he wishes he didn't get it back now.
Oh yeah, I bet he does. And so, but we hope you get well soon, Dan. We've also got, I don't really know how this happened. I showed you the picture and your reaction was like, what?
It's out of context. It's like, how did that get there?
Yeah, in a junior meeting in Poland, somehow a bike managed to get off the track, over the fence and into the stands. I have no idea how that got there, and it's so good that no one was sat there because, I mean, that could have killed someone because them
the fans
bikes
are in the stadium, aren't they?
Oh yeah, and I saw someone react to it on Facebook who normally sits there, and they were like, you know what, not sitting there anymore, and I was like, yeah, I don't blame you. So that is the Balls Up moments for Speedway.
Yeah, we've got one in football too from the final day of the season in the Leicester and Manchester United match.
Don't remind me.
Absolutely insane. It sums up Leicester's end to the season really, with Kasper Schmeichel. He dawdles on the ball. He goes to like kick it but ends up deciding not to, and then Jesse Lingard comes, steals the ball off of him in the 97th minute.
Yep.
And scores his first goal of the season. Right at the end.
I mean, it was painful to watch.
It was absolutely... I don't know what Schmeichel was doing. It was absolutely crazy. A goalkeeper of his quality making a mistake like that, it's just not expected. But that's just what Leicester have been doing the last few weeks.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like the one where Kasper Schmeichel he kicked it right to the other player.
Oh yeah, in the Bournemouth game where Kasper Schmeichel kicks the ball and it bounces right off Ndidi, and they go through and Ndidi ends up fouling him and Bournemouth get a penalty. We also have a balls up moment for the MLB in the Cubs-Brewers game where the Brewers player hits the ball, it goes straight to the shortstop. Lorenzo Cain on second base gets stuck between second and third base. He gets caught in a rundown with the Cubs fielders, and the guy who actually hit the ball actually saves him completely because he's in a rundown. He manages to get out of it because the guy on first base runs to second base and distracts everyone, and then Lorenzo Cain managed to get back to second base. And because the Cubs are all focused on Lorenzo Cain on second base, no one's on first base, so the guy just runs straight back to first base. There's no one there. They get no outs.
Yeah.
I would be absolutely fuming if I was the manager seeing that. It was absolutely crazy. I was literally just watching it like, how has that even happened?
I don't really know how that happened.
How have they made that possible? Because the Cubs have to get the out there.
Yeah.
I don't know why Lorenzo Cain has even gone. He should have stuck on second base when the ball came straight at him, but how they got no outs was absolutely insane.
Watching that clip, really, I can literally replay it in my head of him just running between the two. Oh, it was brilliant.
Yeah, so that's all for this episode of the Balls Out podcast.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and if you've not listened to our previous episodes, you can check them out on Spotify, Mixcloud and YouTube.
And in the meantime, you can check out our social media so you never miss an upcoming post.
Yeah, we'll be back very soon with the next episode. Now, unfortunately, we have got some sad news. Bellevue legend Alan Wilkinson has sadly passed away. He joined the club in 1971, but sadly his career ended after a crash which left him paralysed in 1978. The BSPA said his courage in life since then has been remarkable.